You're not ready for this one, just when you thought the Silva twins couldn't be any more dramatic, scandalous, and painfully explosive. A deathbed twist pops up out of nowhere, blowing everything wide open. I'm talking legacy levels of betrayal, blackmail, long buried family secrets. And at the heart of it all is a man people thought they knew, Mike Silva in particular. A man who's made the shocking decision to miss his daughters at what's proven to be the most decisive time of their entire lives. But trust, this isn't about a missed phone call or a plane and a time zone conspiring against each of them. No, no, no. We're talking about a highly calculated, highly emotional absence. And the worst part is, it's all a part of a last-minute tweak to a will and trust. You will never look at this family the same way again. Buckle up for the deathbed amendment. Well, here's what nobody is telling you. Mike Silva, this soft-spoken, apparently supportive dad that all of us have come to love on Darcey and Stacey, was never going to ride in for season 2 of the twins like this proud father figure. According to this source that's had ties to the family for more than a decade, this dad's absence in the family wasn't necessarily just for show, it was deliberate. It was planned, and it was to make a point. Oh, because while all these emotional phone calls are happening and all this we miss dad editing is going on at TLC that we get to enjoy every season, there's this weird family dynamic that's happening with all this control and all this money. Yeah, money. Inheritance, real estate in China, and all this kind of cash that could make this emotional family reunion turn into all-out war. And this is where it all goes off the rails. Right before a significant family event, which the twins have been. Planning for months, filming schedules set in stone, and hair and makeup teams hired, Mike goes dark. No response to their guest list invitation. No explanation or even a sarcastic emoji reply to their perfectly airbrushed social media postings. Nothing. And then, out of left field, comes a legal contract ripe with intrigue. There's been a deathbed edition, and all of their plans just got turned upside down again because Mike changed his will, directing part of his inheritance to stop going to Darcey and Stacey, and instead go to some family beneficiary in Europe, which, as far as the twins know, they don't even have family in far-off lands, let alone in close proximity to all their family in the United States. And they learned this fact not when it happened, but after it happened, and let me tell you. Sweetheart, when they learned this, it broke their hearts, but it also set them off. I know what you're thinking. Why would Mike do this? Why now to understand this move, though? You have to go back, because, let's be clear, Mike Silva has always been more than just the twins' dad. He has always been the behind-the-scenes power player. The man who saved the twins from the flop that was Asterisk House of 11 Asterisk. The one who quietly paid off Florian's lawyer fees. The one who kept Georgie away even though the cameras are long gone. Filming the end of another season. Though everything he has done has been out of love for the twins, sources insist that. Quite frankly, it seems Mike Silva finally lost his patience with them not because of one thing, but because of everything that has happened in the past. Few years alone, the numerous meltdowns in front of the world, the surgeries, the engagements. But one thing, quite simply, that Mike Silva could never, ever, in a million years, ever forget, is that Darcey and Stacey are capitalizing off the very drama he provided them in order for them to become reality superstars, without so much as consulting him on it first. And listen, before we get further into all of this, let's just pause and look at one thing, The fact that you are probably freaking out as hard as I am from just this tea is fine, I guess. The thing is, the fact that this guy basically just cut ties with his daughters and then just went about changing his will is, like, next level levels of betrayal, maybe. If you are as shocked as I am, please, by the grace of God, leave me a comment or something. Because I need some backup on knowing the twins are just left in the dust. Trying to understand not just why Mike blew them off during this Crucial time, but also who the beneficiary in Europe even is. Fans have theorized everything from a long-lost mistress to a hidden child, but what I've learned, it's much, much worse. As in, this beneficiary of Mike's affection has been communicating with him for over 3 years. And how, exactly? Why, it goes all the way back to his time in China. That is right, people. We're mining their secrets before the show. There. Business in other countries. And what may have been an innocent friendship turned relationship that's potentially about to remove Darcey and Stacy from the legend of the Silvas. But here's how it really affects them, according to a source. With knowledge of production, TLC attempted to spin this entire ordeal from a scheduling conflict. But that's not what happened. They specifically told them not to film Mike from season 5. Not because he couldn't be there, but he refused to go on record giving one soundbite. To validate the twins' storyline, his words, not mine, and when a father speaks like this about his own girls, this isn't petty, this is personal. But that's not even the part that gets really complicated. As the twins began to go public about their heartbreak, a voice memo was leaked. And by voice memo, I mean a real, live, and actual voice memo from Mike to a confidant charging that he is done funding drama, and that the twins are manipulating their image for sympathy. The voice memo has not been unleashed yet, but the part of it that went to Reddit, well, let me tell you, it's giving me CEO vibes. It's giving me I've been quiet for too long. It's giving me Game of Thrones, the House of the 11, and to be fair, this last leaked revelation has completely flipped the entire situation on its head. Because now fans are eating their heads off trying to figure out if Mike is finally taking a stand for himself after all this time with the emotional blackmail, while on the other hand they're condemning him for penalizing his two daughters by virtue of them living their lives and not requiring his participation anymore. And in the middle of all this drama, Darcey is having a meltdown on live camera, while Stacy is sharing what can only be described as ominous quotes on the good old Bible. And Florian is just trying to stay out of this whole thing and avoid being drawn into the ongoing legal issues. Well, remember that European beneficiary who somehow miraculously popped up in the deathbed. Amendment to Mike Silva, yep. The one who will be getting a share of what was supposed to be the inheritance. For Darcey and Stacy, well, get ready, because she's not only real, it's not only that she exists. She's actually alive, and guess who? Fans were quick to spot her, and later, insiders corroborated. The one in this mess? It turns out she's actually the former au pair of Aniko and Aspen. Yep, the twins' ex-nanny. One they used to call family until she simply upped and left all those years ago, and guess who she actually is in real life? Well, she actually goes by a different last name in Geneva, one which puts her right in the business circle of Mike Silva, as reportedly described by people she met during the Connecticut. Period. She is apparently named Alira Dushan. She is Albanian, speaks 3 languages fluently, and met the family through a distant cousin from Florian's side. When Darcey is still trying to keep Georgie jealous by showing off the blended family life, she is not only a caretaker but a confidant. Most especially Mike. They found something in common with respect to culture and all the discussions about their legacies. And most disturbingly, their exasperation with the twins' life going from order to complete mayhem. 2 years went by when Alira completely vanished from everyone's life, making Darcey heartbroken and caused Stacy declaring that she is blindsided. They haven't heard from her ever until now, but because, at this point, not only is Alira back on the scene, she's the beneficiary of the most earth-shattering will change since Kris Jenner rewrote the Kardashians' prenups. And reportedly, via leaked correspondence between Alira and a shared business associate of Mike's. Not only did Alira inherit money, she inherited the power of attorney to manage one of Mike's offshore holding accounts, an account the twins did not know existed, and this she's been draining it of its resources since the spring. Without the family's knowledge, no less, it's almost efficient. And then it gets worse. In one of the actual leaked emails, it quite literally states, "The girls have their TV show. Let them keep the cameras. What we're building is private. Private from whom? From your own daughters, if your jaw just hit the floor same. And let's be real. Everyone knows Darcey is messy, and she is, but this is not messy. This is war, because the twins have worked so hard as family first, daddy's girls. The broken china that has taken it upon herself to turn her life around, with the stalwart help of her rock of a dad, and then they are kicked out of the family business, replaced by a woman they trusted in their own home, not just disloyal, not just hurtful, psychological mayhem. The documents, the finances, the fraud, all of this was made possible by 7 seconds of footage. But thanks to this footage, we now know the truth. Darcey was not only betrayed, she was hiding something, and from what I've learned from 2 separate sources, what Darcey is begging Alira to keep quiet about is a loan, not just a loan, a 6-figure loan. One that Darcey borrowed against one of Mike Silva's overseas properties without his consent. That's right. It was 2021, and right when House of 11 was at the height of their growth marketing. Darcey uses her fake signature from a family-owned LLC to drum up funding for the company against Mike's Chinese apartment complex. And here's the kicker. It was Alira who discovered it all. It was a financial transaction, which Alira found while looking through financials that Mike had granted her power of attorney for. And instead of talking to Darcey, Alira immediately turned to Mike. No passion, no drama, no emotion involved. It was all about the cold, hard papers, and it was all, apparently, the motivation behind the deathbed amendment in the rewrite of the will. And let's be real, we have been along for the ride of the twins through it all. Jesse, Tom, Georgie, the twin weddings, the almost surgeons, Miami implosions. But this is something different because, see, Darcey wasn't just destructive to the males in their lives. Darcey was destructive to the family's future. And it all adds up now. The reason Mike hasn't called, the reason he blew off the family's reunion, the reason he abandoned the family altogether, it's simple from his point of view. His daughters stole from him. And of course, in classic Silva style, rather than, I don't know, talking to them through therapy or maybe, just maybe, having a calmly civil family discussion, he went back to what he could control, his will. But then comes another bizarre twist. While Darcey's voicemail is very upsetting, it's Stacy's response to this information that's downright chilling. Apparently, she only discovered she was loaned the money because of this leaked voicemail, and she was enraged. A source close to a makeup artist who was working on the set of House of 11 corroborated to me that Stacy took Darcey aside and shouted, "You lied to me. You used his name without telling me. You said it was family money, not his." The extent of this tantrum was so severe, I'm told, filming was interrupted. Stacy didn't bother with individual confessionals for over a week. Meanwhile, Florian allegedly almost walked out, and yes, I know what you are thinking. Darcey is known for spiraling. She's emotional, she acts before thinking. But this was planned. This was a trail of documents. This was a risk that she took and hoped that it would never be traced. And now it's blown up in her face and in ours, and can I just say this because honestly, it's a lot to take in if you're sitting in front of a TV with a figurative head, in hands like the rest of us, wondering how we've transitioned from crying daddy's girls to probably money laundering secret credit conspiracies. Know that you're not alone. This is not reality TV anymore. This is a family in disarray and implosion. Trust issues tickled to death, yeah. Mine are better by an exponential amount if there's anyone else freaking out in this comment box. Now, let's move on to the aftermath. Darcey is spiraling, obviously, but Stacy, she's thinking ahead. Because while Darcey has been trying to make amends on the down low, Stacy took it to the network. Yep, that's what I'm hearing. Apparently, Stacy has pitched a spinoff. Show, not with Darcey, mind you. Without Darcey, the TBA show will be called Stacey Unfiltered. A no-holds-barred look at what it takes to rebuild when family betrayal, business betrayal, and love betrayal are involved, and it's all been reported that Stacey's one and only talking point has been this: I've never lied to my family. Chills. Once and now TLC is considering it, and Darcey is aware of it. Which means that for the first time in years, the twins are no longer in sync with each other. No coordinated confessionals, no coordinated glam, no twin flames for life. Quotes included with the images: it's tense, it's icy, and it's about to get far worse. Because just when we thought that it couldn't possibly get much worse, Alira gets back in the picture. Not only that, but she shows up in public, in person. When Alira appeared in the House of 11 Miami pop-up, the air itself shifted. Witnesses report that the music stopped, those in attendance froze, Darcey's back was turned. At the time, she hadn't even seen her appear yet, however, Stacey saw her coming, and when she clenched her jaw, well, you can't simulate that kind of reaction for a media event. Alira appeared not just to protest, but to expose. She wore vintage House of 11, of all things, as if some dark form of fashion magic, some twisted kind of resurrection, appeared in their space. And she came with all her receipts, all her documents, all her secrets they'd hidden. Security tried to catch her. She said no, thank you, kindly. Expressed her legal privileges to be there, and then, matter-of-factly, as she might have ordered coffee, she asked to see Darcey. Not in the back, not secretly, not with an air of collusion, but out on the floor with the customers, the lights, the cameras, the crew, and the audience. And when Darcey finally locked her gaze on her, the blood visibly drained from her face. It became, at that split second, no pop-up, but a battlefield. And then came the moment we will never forget. Alira pulled out a manila envelope from her purse, yes. Literally a manila envelope, like she's Olivia Pope handed it to Darcey. And in a voice so calm it was almost like she had practiced the way she delivered the line. She said, "These are the documents you forged. Here's the bank trace. Here's the deed. Here's the signature comparison. I'm not here to fight. I'm here to end it. He deserved better." Waterboard her, screamed Sarah for about the 100th time. Find her, she's still out there. Darcey refused to open the envelope. Her hands were shaking, but the cameras kept rolling. Stacey finally pushed through the crowd and yanked the envelope out of her sister's hands, opened it, and read the first page. Her jaw dropped. Then she turned to Darcey, and a small voice whispered, "You told me this was taken care of. That it wouldn't lead back to us." And then the twins went their separate ways, and Darcey's world continued to spin. Her eyes darting wildly, desperate for some kind of emotional high ground. But Stacey wasn't going down like that. Not this time, not like this, and not while her family's very existence was on the table. And she'd just been sucked into something she didn't know the first thing about. And then Alira delivered the knockout punch, the amended will, signed, notarized, and clearly stating she, and she alone, was named as the successor of Mike's real estate trusts in Asia and the East European region. The twins were cut out. But they were cut out legally, and not just from Mike's funds. Darcey tried to take back control. She reached out towards the cameras, started to monologue about betrayal, family, and deception, but it sounded insincere. And then, just as the production team was about to panic, Stacey had the revelation that turned everything on its head. Maybe he was protecting us from her. But now I think he was protecting her from us. Boom. Silence. One could hear producers arguing in the background. It was that real dot, and this is where it all comes apart completely. Because in the days following this confrontation, several crew members did come forward, anonymous, of course, and what came out is rather chilling. Apparently, for more than 2 seasons, there had been edited out footage of Darcey pushing Mike for cash, footage of meltdowns in hotel rooms, of her accusing him of abandoning her because of every single breakup. and of passive-aggressive phone calls that weren't shown, because it would have damaged the image of the twins. And now that it's all coming to light, a special episode called The Silva Legacy Uncut is in consideration for TLC. And if you're wondering what happened to Florian, well, he's mysteriously quiet now, completely. Deleted posts, no Instagram, lives. Rumored to be split with Stacy, but out of the camera's range in some temp place in the vicinity of Miami, just riding out the fallout. Quote, unquote, this isn't what I signed up for. I married reality TV, but I did not sign up for financial deception, and honestly, I think he has a point. But here's the twist that absolutely no one saw coming. In one of the emails Alira included in the leaks, there's a name that made a lot of head scratch in fan circles. A name that shouldn't be there. It's Jesse, yes. Asterisk that asterisk Jesse, Darcey's ex, the Dutch menace himself. Apparently, Darcey reached out to Jesse in 2022 for advice on European investment strategies after catching wind of Jesse's flexy little crypto-flavored social media empire. And here's the part you won't see in any headlines, he replied. He allegedly gave her advice on finding loopholes for overseas loans using property as collateral, which, when you connect the dots, is precisely when the forgery scheme kicked off. So, while Darcey's been crying betrayal, she may have been colluding with her ex to manipulate her father's international assets. We are not okay, and if you're still alive after all this, same. I need hydration. I need answers. I need a full spiritual wellness check. Because the way this story has just twisted and twisted and twisted again, it's just crazy. Let me say this again. This would be a cautionary tale if it were anyone else, but because it's the Silvas, this is a full-fledged cinematic universe. And if you're feeling like your faith in Darcey just shattered like a House of 11 press-on now, I see you. Leave a comment, vent. We're all in this emotional wreckage together. Now, let's talk cliffhanger and then, just when the twins thought they were shattered, split apart, and cast into permanent limbo from Mike's inheritance. Darcey dropped a bombshell, not on Instagram, not on the show, but on a late-night podcast interview with a small host that no one had ever heard of until now. And on that podcast, without benefit of a publicist, Darcey said, and I'm quoting, then, there is another will. It is the will that he signed before he went into surgery. He revealed that he knew where the will is located. His tone changed and he said, and if I were to find that will, everything excuse me is a pre-amended will in existence, one that still includes the twins as full beneficiaries. Is Darcey on the verge of a legal fight against her father's last will and testament? Is this family headed for a showdown in court that could ruin what is left of the family? We don't know, and I mean, we don't know right now. But here's what I do know. Darcey's attorney has filed an initial petition to get the financial records. Alira has hired an attorney of her own, and Mike is completely silent, which is pretty telling, right? But you bet your butt, this ain't over. The fight for the Silva heritage has only just begun. Now, let's take it back to the hour after. Not the pop-up attack, because while Part 4 took us to the shock value, delivery of Alira's envelope attack and Jesse's name drop, Part 5 is where the cameras shut off and reality kicks in. No, this is where families fall apart, where accounts are frozen, where everything within the closet comes spilling out, yet following Alira's exit out of the House of 11 pop-up as if she were the ghost of receipts. Past, the ripple effects came quickly and in waves. Production stopped all scheduled shoots for the rest of the week within 48 hours. Employees went on hold, venues in Miami, where shoots had been scheduled, got emails for their filming dates. Behind the scenes, TLC was in full-blown panic mode. Not just because their story just went nuclear, but because their legal team is involved now. You see, Darcey didn't just let Alira's ambush sit well with her. Per to insiders familiar with the twins' brand, Darcey called her lawyer as soon as she got to the back of the event space, where she was engaged in meltdown activities. Complete with smeared makeup and shaky hands, she stole our name, our legacy. She wants to erase us. We have to fight back. But here's the kicker. She COULDN single quotes T dot because. Of course, before Alira had even arrived, his lawyers had already started the process of freezing assets. A complete lockdown of the Chinese and Serbian holding companies, both of which were associated with the Silva Trust. Bank accounts had been flagged, money transfers halted, internal audits requested, and since Darcey had been falsifying documents to do with one of the trusts, her privileges had been immediately withdrawn. Credit cards no longer worked, her perks to the House of 11 suspended. That's when the panic began in earnest, and here is where Stacy loses it. Per leaked audio from a recorded phone conversation between her and Florian, which accidentally picked up on an open mic from a dropped production walkie-talkie, Stacy admits that she knew something was not right. She told me it was cleared. She said Dad signed it in Europe and that it was just a formality. I didn't ask questions. I didn't want to know, she didn't want to know, and this is the tragedy. In all of this, Stacy did not forge anything. She did not move any money. She did not contact Jesse or set up any of her own financial conduits. She did, however, stand by while her sister did. This is how the Silvas have done things for years, twin loyalty. Mirror each other, support the brand. And the bond, they are all about themselves. However, this is no longer serving them well. And you sense it in every encounter after the blow-up. As they emerge into public now, there's a distance between them. They no longer sit so closely. The punchlines fail to connect. The twin sync dynamic greater than mojo is glitching. But what goes on behind closed doors is only marginally better. Stacy is reportedly thinking of pulling her investment out of House of 11 and demanding a complete financial audit of the firm. And poor, beset by emotions, Florian is torn between his love for his wife and his fear of being dragged into federal lawsuit action regarding wire fraud and tax code circumvention. So, this is where we arrive at the heart of Part 5. The betrayal that is no longer monetary but an identification issue. Being approved by their father is all that mattered to the Silvas. Mike is the unseen cement that holds everything together, always the voice of reason, but never visible. But that cement is now hardened to stone, and what's waiting on the other side? It is here, however, that Alira pushes the boundary. Only days after the pop-up explosion, she gives an interview exclusivity to a small outlet in Europe. It barely makes waves on the American shore until the fans get on it and share screenshots on Reddit. The fans who were gutted by this quote, they built a business out of their pain. I chose peace instead, Mike Silva, as quoted by Alira that line. Consequently, the viewers have never been more divided than they are now. Team Darcey thinks that she was cornered and psychologically manipulated into desperation. Team Alira, on the flip side, thinks that she was the one whispering truth into the chorus of twins' madness. As for Team Stacy, they just want her to leave before it is too late. And if you thought the Learning Channel, aka TLC, is taking sides, not so fast. According to sources, a non-compete clause is quietly in play between the twins, which means if Stacy is working on her own spin-off, Darcey will not be permitted to appear in the same time slot, which means reunions, combined branding, and even twin transformation revivals would all be off. What that means is that the divide is definite and it's legal, and oh, just when you think it can't go any lower, Alira drops one. Last file, it is a transcript from a voice note, which is said to be from the last few months that Mike spent in China, in which he says, "If they come after what is mine, then they had better be ready to lose what is theirs." What could what's theirs be? Anyway, everything hinges on this point. In fact, what Darcey Silva, bruised and battered, makes a last-ditch effort to find her rightful place within the Silva family legacy, and it's not via Instagram Live, cryptic messages, or planned reunions over lunch. No, No, Darcey isn't playing it safe this time. This time, it's full-on legal battle all the way. Documents, depositions, and subpoenas. Oh my, why, you ask? It's due to the fact that what Darcey said in the podcast is true, that there's an original will. Yes, an original will signed by the late Mike Silva himself before the alteration. In the last will and testament, and to top everything off, there may be evidence 3 weeks later, after the podcast went viral in the fan base. Darcey was photographed outside a law firm in Connecticut. No glamour, no filtering. Just the necessary paperwork clutched under her arm and final boss vibes. All over her face on the same day. Darcey filed a court motion to petition for the unsealed access to Mike's estate records. That had been closed off to her. To unseal the personally maintained safe deposit boxes in Switzerland. Switzerland, you ask? Well, Darcey revealed, Mike told me that's where he kept the real papers. In one of the last phone conversations he had with her before his surgery. Yes, a phone call that no one else knew about. Darcey says it occurred the night before surgery. He was emotional, tired, scared. If anything happens, remember the box. It has the one that matters. Here's the problem. Darcey had no way of recording this conversation. There were no witnesses, only her testimony, contradicted by Alira. And then there's Alira. She's not going down without a fight. It took only a few days from the filing of Darcey's motion before Alira's attorneys clapped back. They sent a cease and desist notice against Darcey and TLC, claiming that Alira had been victimized by defamation, intimidation, and the emotional exploitation of family pain for the purposes of personal enrichment. Oof. The legal papers were vicious, not only specifying the monetary exploitation, which is bad enough on its own, but also texts from Darcey and other outside investors containing private exchanges where Darcey called Alira a phase and Mike a man who would be effortlessly manipulated if you're able to stroke his daddy complex. The internet community is still rocked by this revelation. Because wow, and this is even before the worst part. What happens next is a shocker. A statement is also offered by Aniko, Darcey's daughter herself. Of her own volition, not at Darcey's behest, not in support of mom, to maintain objectivity. And in this statement, Aniko reveals that while Darcey did introduce the box in Switzerland several times in the past 12 months, she also admits that mom knew the company was bleeding money in the family, and that dad would fix it if things get ugly. This is the breaking point, because with this one statement, Aniko is doing something that no one else is brave enough to do. She stops choosing sides and starts choosing truth. The poem note in the fans, oh no, we were most certainly not prepared. Reddit went ballistic. Twitter handled it like it handled the last one. And the fan base was divided neatly in two, those who continued to think that Darcey had been cornered, and those who now believe that she was the architect of it all. But what proved to be the death blow? It is in the form of a letter weeks into the case. A sealed addendum is submitted by Mike's estate attorney, and no one could have predicted it. It was written in longhand, signed, and dated one day before the last surgery he would ever have. This is what Mike wrote, just in case. I ask of you, Alira, to take care of what survives. I love my daughters, but I no longer trust them to keep a legacy. I hope they understand. I wish I didn't have to make this decision. That, Brokeet's not only a legal setback, it's a spiritual one. The man who was always relegated to the background, supporting his daughters through every failure, ended his life choosing silence, distance, finality, and whether he deserved it or was treated harshly. This much is obvious. Darcey and Stacy are no longer at the forefront of their father's business. But, typical Silva style, of course, it doesn't mean they are going down without a fight. Not Darcey. No, not yet. The final courtroom scene, the trial does go forward. After all features Darcey on her own, Stacy is not there. Of course, Florian is back in Albania. Her lawyers display the evidence, the bank demands, the safe deposit box. The list of her possessions to be auctioned off, the list of her crimes, the list of her suspects. Her husband, her lover, her husband's lover, her friend's husband. The friend she thinks is her friend, the friend the tabloids don't realize she is her sister's child, and the judge taking no action. Inasmuch as it has not yet been opened, because the final truth, it's all still locked away in Switzerland until it is opened. The court cannot determine which will is the last will. What next? Then the Silva empire is broken. Darcey and Stacy are estranged. Mike is no longer with us, but his example resounds in our ears much louder than all his words. And Elira, she's quietly fulfilling the role of a steward, managing Mike's assets and refusing any interviews, preferring the documents to speak for themselves. And yet, somewhere, in some corner of some Swiss vault, there is a sealed envelope. Perhaps it is true, and perhaps it is empty. And perhaps it contains the final revelation that upends this whole story altogether. But until it's opened, the legacy war is still going on.